Hi, this is Carole Baskin, and this is Cat Chat 46 with Karen Lynch, the author of the Irish Holiday Fairy Tales by Finn McCool, The Magic Leprechaun Cat. I am so happy to have you with us today, Karen.
Well, I'm delighted to be here. Finn and I are delighted to be here in anticipation of his big holiday, St. Patrick's Day.
This is just perfect timing, and Karen's going to be at our March for Lions event on Saturday, and she's going to be signing copies of this book. So if you're coming out to the march, be sure and look for Karen. The reason I wanted you to be on our show today is I was talking to one of our volunteers, Denny, and he said, you have just got to talk to this lady. She's the most interesting person. And so I'd love to hear how you got involved saving cats.
Well, I've been involved saving animals since I was a little child. But here in Florida, it all began when I met my spy husband, literally spy, CIA agent. And he and I, when I moved in with him, he and I saw how, for some reason or other, people thought it was all right when they moved out of our neighborhood just to leave their animals. They left cats, they left dogs, and didn't think anything of it. And the bravest men have the biggest hearts, and I would go out and I would bring another animal home, and he would never say anything. He would simply say, "Oh, what do you think we ought to name it?" And if I brought kittens home, he was delighted because he loved kittens. And partially the reason they did so well when they got new homes was because he lavished so much affection on them, and they were so people-oriented. And so, you know, he used to say, man has kittens, doesn't need television. And
I'm sure that's true.
That was 25 plus years ago.
Wow.
And in the beginning, we used to take in dogs, too. For example, one day I'm driving down the road, and here's this little Pekingese running up the road right at my truck. And I stopped and brought him home and took him to the vet the next day to get him vetted out, and found out he was totally blind. And put pictures all over, thinking whoever owned him was frantic. Nobody ever came for him. Nobody.
Isn't that something?
My husband said...
You know he didn't escape blind.
Yeah, my husband said, you know, he's never going to anybody else, because if he ever gets rejected again, that would really be terrible. And he lived with us for 8 years. He was older than we thought he was when we found him, but he lived with us 8 years. And so we did this for all these years. We had a house that on a pond and had a 15 by 17 screened and enclosed porch. It was a natural, and the kitties could go out, and we became a sanctuary for small cats, because mostly every animal that was tossed out was an animal who had always lived as a house pet. And now all of a sudden they found themselves on the street. They didn't know how to live on the street. They didn't know where to go to look for food. They didn't know how to keep themselves warm when the day got cold or it was raining. And somehow they would find their way to our house. I always say it got a little neon sign out front that says, always vacancies. And they would come, and we would assess their situation. I would take them to the vet and have them checked and have them spayed or neutered if they weren't already. And then we would take them in, and they would have a good home until they died. And a lot of them lived into their 20s, which was really great. We love that, and stayed very healthy the whole time.
That's a testament to the good.
Pardon?
I said that's a testament to the good treatment that you gave
them.
Well,
see, I've had animals all my life. I mean, I had horses all my life, and horses are 1,200 pounds of Dresden china. With horses.
Yes, they are.
With horses, what can go wrong does go wrong. Okay. They don't have any vomiting muscles, so they're very sensitive to what they eat. And if they get some stomachache kind of ailment, simply rolling on the ground can kill them because it twists their intestines. I don't want to get gory. Anyway, to make a short story short, with horses, you have to be on the ball 24/7, 365. You have to know each of your animals like the back of your hand. So the minute you look in the stall, you know something's not right. You get on it. So, when it comes to cats, who are a lot hardier, although they have the kind of nasty habit of, in the wild, they don't like to show that they're in pain or they're hurt or something because it makes them more vulnerable. So even with cats, you have to be kind of up on their personalities and habits, because they can hide the fact they're sick until it's too late to do something about it. So even with cats, you really have to know the individual and, be looking for signs that something isn't right every day and jump on it before it gets bad.
And, speaking of horses, when you say something about horses, you really know horses, because you were telling me a little bit earlier about some of the incredible experiences that you had with your horses. So could you tell our viewers a little bit more about the work that you did with horses?
Well, I started very young riding. I grew up in the city, but my family was very horse-oriented people, even though we didn't have any in the backyard. My mother and my aunt rode. My grandfather grew up on a farm with horses. So when they found out I liked horses, they backed me 100%. And I had the incredible experience to learn what I learned about horses from a woman who was really extraordinary. She was a New York socialite that got all the classical training in riding and then ran away from home and joined the Wild West Circus, and was one of the first people to ride a horse off a thing into, the water, how they used to jump them off. I don't know about that. But anyway, she really knew her horses, and by the time I met her, she was 82 years old.
Oh my.
And she was a real task mistress when you rode with her, okay? The horse always came first, and she really taught you. I learned to ride. She had every breed of horse on her farm. I learned to ride every kind of seat. She even taught me to jump side saddle.
That's going to be hard to stay in the saddle when you're going over a jump.
But she made you a really good rider. I mean, you could ride anything. My mother, I wanted a horse so bad. My mother one day came out to watch me ride a potential horse. It was my friend Susan's horse. She went off to horse show, didn't leave any tack. All she left was a hackamore bridle, which is a bridle without a bit. And that didn't faze me. This was a 3-year-old thoroughbred, by the way, and it was a dead of winter. And I just put the hackamore on and led her out to the ring and hopped on her back and rode her in the ring. And from the time I left the gate till the time she arrived back at the gate, she could put her head between her knees and buck the entire way around the thing. And when she pulled up at the gate, I said to my mother, "Wow, don't you just love her?" And my mother is pale as a ghost. Mrs. Parker could make you stick on anything, and I was bareback.
Oh.
And but she was a good teacher, and because she was a good teacher, I went from thoroughbreds, riding hunters and jumpers, to having thoroughbred racehorses, broodmares. And because she taught me to have a good eye for a horse, and to know what worked and what didn't work, and to understand that you read a horse in his eyes, okay? When I used to go buy horses for clients, and they would pull a horse out of the stall, if I didn't like the horse's eye when they pulled him out, he never improved from there on.
Wow.
Eyes are the windows to any animal's soul. And if you look at a horse's eye, it will tell you so much about it, the individual horse, if you know what you're looking for, that you can't believe it. And then the rest of it comes confirmation, soundness, all of that follows, that you have to have the rest of it. But if it doesn't have the right look, racehorses, it's all about soul and heart, okay? You can't win if you don't have heart. You can't win if you don't want to win. And that comes having from a lot of heart and courage, and that's reflected in his eye. And so to judge the horse first that way is not hard on the individual. It's a quick way of assessing the potential of that animal. And so
you had a lot of success with the animals.
Yes, we did. Bred 2 international champions, the dam of the horse that won the Arc de Triomphe, which is the most prestigious race in Europe. And we bred the horse that was highway 2-year-old in Italy. and lots of good horses here. And what we did was we bred them, and we raced a few horses, but mostly they were fillies that we would add to our broodmare band. And what we did was sell at the major auctions. And we had a big farm in Lexington, Kentucky, but we also had breeding stock in Ireland, England, and France, because we bred for the European market. Because at that point, the Arabs were getting into the racehorse business big time, and they liked to race in Europe. So we bred for that market because they were paying the big prices for the yearlings. It was very interesting. I spent a lot of years going back and forth, most of them in Ireland, which is actually where we kept the horses for the most part. And I'm part Irish, so I fell in love with the place. You can't go to Ireland, by the way, viewers, and not fall in love with the place.
Yeah, Jamie went there for a wedding, and she really loved it.
Finn here, Finn, the little cat Finn, he is named Finn McCool.
And you said he's a real cat.
He's a real cat, and when he was just a tiny baby, this big, because he was born in my bedroom, I named him Finn McCool. And Finn McCool, Fionn McCumhall, I hope I'm saying that right, is the Gaelic of his name. And strangely enough, when you translate it to English, it literally translates to Finn McCool. And Finn is the national hero of Ireland. He's the legendary hero of Ireland. They even made him a giant, like Paul Bunyan.
Wow.
You know? And he's famous in Ireland. So this little golden cat, I named Finn McCool. And then I decided, I'd been writing at this time. I already had 2 books published. And
when did you start writing?
Oh, I started writing in 1983 when a client from Venezuela told me one day at dinner, as I was doing a business deal with him on a racehorse, that what I did for a living was a perfect cover for a spy. Oh, really? How do you know? I know. I did business with him for a lot of years, and in 1983, I was in Deauville, France. Well, it was 82, actually. And I was looking out the hotel window, the Normandy Hotel, at the fog-shrouded English Channel, and I saw this little guy in his little fedora and trench coat, you know, typical spy. I said, think about all the spy novels you read. All of them have male lead characters. I'm going to go home and change that. Because we all know that's not the whole story. And I went home, and over a period of time, because I'm running this international business, it took me 5 years to write it, I wrote a book called The Game of Lies. It's approved by the CIA, had to be, because it is one of the most authentic spy novels there is.
Wow. I'm going to have to read this.
Yeah, it is as close to the real thing as you can get. They said, well-researched, well-written, and a fair and balanced view of the agency. And wow. I gave that manuscript to my Venezuelan friend, who turned out to be Cuban, and he said to me, now I'm going to introduce you to the man that taught me everything I know. And he introduced me to my husband, Grayston Lynch. And Gray just happened to be a CIA intelligence officer. His first assignment after going to the agency was case officer to the command ship Blagar in the invasion of the Bay of Pigs.
Oh,
he was the first man on the beach. He shot the first shot. He was the last man off the beach after rescuing 41 surviving 2506 brigade members. He planned 2,000 missions into Cuba after that, did 113 himself with a commando group he had trained, and which every mission was successful, never lost a man. He had served in the Army, 3 Purple Hearts, 2 Silver Stars, a Bronze Star would be for valor, and finally the highest award you can get from the CIA without coming home in a casket, the Intelligence Star. He makes James Bond look like he can't get out of his own way with one hand tied behind his back. And he's an amazing hero to the Cuban people. And the friend that I met from Venezuela, the client, was one of his frogmen at the Bay of Pigs.
Oh, wow. I mean, that's just like every woman's dream story of the
20 years I waited for Prince Charming. I got a knight in shining armor, the real kind. I mean, he wasn't even bogus.
And he loved cats.
Well, and he loved animals, you know. I mean, I always say the bravest men have the biggest hearts. And when I moved in with him, we noticed that in our neighborhood, and we got married a little after I moved in with him. I didn't want to get
I wasn't
married.
going to say anything. That was really scandalous back then.
I know. He would say to me, he'd say, I want to make an honest woman out of you. I'd say, I am an honest woman. I just want to be a single one. And he'd laugh, you know, but finally he convinced me. And but what we noticed was that people would move out of the neighborhood and they would just leave their animals, dogs and cats, you know, they would just go on their merry way, never think about it. And for the most part, almost all of them, 99% of them, were cats or dogs that had been pets all their life. They had no clue what to do now that they were on the street. They didn't know where to eat. They didn't know where to sleep. They didn't know how to get out of the weather. There was no place to go. There was nothing. Suddenly, they'd go back to their door, and the door was shut, and there was nobody to open it. And so, somehow or other, they magically found their way to our door. See?
Part of that Irish magic.
Well, the sign says, you know, never any vacancies, always vacancies, really. And I would just bring him in, and like I said, you know, he would just look at me and say, well, what do you think we ought to name it? We had a big house. There were only the two of us. We had a beautiful big porch that faced on the lake where they could watch the ducks and everything go out of the house through the little kitty door, you know, and it was great. And he just loved it. He was home. He didn't have anything better to do, and he liked it. He loved the kittens. Man has kittens. He doesn't need television, he used to say. He was something else. He was really great at it. And so we did that. We started over 25 years ago now. And then in 2008, he passed away. He was 20 years older than I was, and he was 85 when he passed away.
Well, that's a good old age. Yes. Especially for a spy.
Yeah. Listen, a lot of people tried to kill him, but they weren't good enough, so that was lucky for me.
Couldn't get past all the cats.
Well, you know, his Cuban buddies used to say that they only knew one person tougher than him, and that was me.
I can believe that.
So anyway, he got an extra 20 years out of it, thanks to us being together. But they were good years because, you know, he was now enjoying things, and he loved the animals. And as I mentioned to you before, I mean, we found this little Pekingese. He was walking up the street, and right up the middle of the street, and I almost ran him over. And I took him home, took him to the vet, and found out he was totally blind. Somebody had dumped a totally blind dog on the road. I put up pictures of him everywhere, thinking they were frantic that their little blind dog was lost. Nobody. So we kept him. I named him after my karate master, Sente. What else would you name a Chinese
after
dog?
Your karate master? It's like, what? You have a karate master?
Oh, yeah, because when I was writing my spy novel, I decided that the character of my main character, Alana Reynolds, was not the kind of pistol-packing mama. Okay? And she had to have a more subtle talent. And in 1983, martial arts were really not the big thing they are, you know. And would you know that in Lexington, Kentucky, of all places in the universe, there happened to be a Grand Master, Shaolin Kung Fu, Grand Master, not just a little master, I mean a Grand Master, okay? He was fantastic. And he took me under his wing. When I told him what I wanted to do, he taught me a special kind of Shaolin martial arts that really suited the character, okay? Because, you know, there's no time for these big Hollywood fight scenes, okay? When you're 5'4" and a little woman, okay, they got to go in a hurry. And so I named this little dog after him, and he lived with us until he was an older dog, and he lived with us for a long time, 8 years, until he passed away. And in 2008, when Gray passed away, the whole complexion of the rescue changed because Gray had a big pension, and because he had been sick all the years, I didn't work, and I didn't. And we were raising Andalusian horses at that time, but when he passed away, the economy also went bust.
Oh, 2008 was like the end of the,
yes, I know.
The era. Just everything went in the
And what our valuable horses, which were an asset, turned into a liability. And
they're expensive to take care of.
Pardon?
They're expensive to take care
very.
of.
But they were supporting themselves because we did it a business. We bred champion Andalusians. They were gorgeous, and there were not very many of them in the country. I think 11,000 in the whole of North America. So they were valuable, but when the economy went, nobody wanted to buy a horse because nobody had any money. Mm. So the income for the rescue went out the window. All right.
And you weren't like, you weren't a charity that was taking in donations or anything?
Oh, no, we were self-funded from the get-go because we had enough money and we didn't feel like we needed it. You know, we just did it on our own. And we fed a lot of animals. We took care of a lot of animals, vet bills and the whole 9 yards. But when he passed away, money gone. Mm. And so I got a job at Public Supermarket. That's my kitty money. It goes in the kitty, the bank, one side, out the kitties, the real kitties, the other side. And it does a pretty good job at helping. And then, of course, being a writer and finding this little kitten that I named Finn McCool after my favorite legendary Irish hero, he morphed into Finn McCool, the magic leprechaun cat. And it all started with his mother, really, because his mother was a very brave cat. She was totally wild, really feral.
I cried
I couldn't
when I
get
read
anywhere near
story.
her. And there was a cat that lived outside my house who'd been my friend. His name was Scooter. His mission in life was he went around the neighborhood, found all the mother cats and kittens, and he brought them home to me. And
thanks a lot, Scooter.
Yeah, on the way, he would somehow assure them that they could just walk up to me and I would take everybody in and they didn't need to be afraid. So one morning, he turns up with this cat. And I'm real surprised. And he sits down and I'm sitting in a lawn chair and he talks. We used to talk. We understood each other perfectly. And I understood he had brought her. There was a problem. And she went right to my front door, which is glass top and bottom, and there's 3 big cats sitting in the door. Now, my cats are not aggressive, so even though she walked right up to the door, they just sat there and behaved themselves.
You said they're not allowed to fight in the front yard.
They're not allowed to fight anyway. Anybody grumbles about something, I just say, we're all brothers and sisters here. That's the end of it. Nobody ever fights in my house. Anyway, she went to the door, and she got up on her hind legs, and she scratched at the door, telling me she wanted in. Now, this is a really feral cat, okay? So I just sat there. She comes back to me. And then she rubs against my leg, and she lets me pet her. Mm. And then she goes back to the door and jumps at the door. I got up, I went in the house, and I got a cat carrier, and I put it on the ground. I said, you see those 3 big cats by the door? There's lots more where they come from. You can't just walk in the door. You got to go in here first. Right. Fat chance she's going to go in the cat carrier, right? She walks right in. And I closed the door, and when I closed the door, she got a little panic. Scooter ran right over and meowed a couple times, and she was good with it. And I took her in, and I took her upstairs, and I have, in my bedroom, I have a huge crate that's set up for an infirmary or pregnancy maternity ward. And I put her in there, and next day, we had 5 kittens.
Wow. Right in time.
Yeah, we had 3 little torties, we had a little black and white guy, and we had the Finn McCool, the magic leprechaun cat.
I love that you refer to him as a ginger cat.
Yeah, he was a ginger
color.
Cat. I mean, he was gold, right?
Yeah.
Leprechauns have gold. What else would he be? So, My husband got sick one day. I took him to the emergency room, and when I got home, I looked in the crate, and I had named her April. And I looked in the crate, and she was slumped over the bed. And when I went in there, she had passed away.
Oh, how sad.
And
right after having her kittens.
So I took, well, it was 5 weeks.
5 weeks.
5 weeks exactly, which is what she needed to be here, and then they could be weaned, right?
Mm.
Okay, so the next day I took her, Carole Cats, to the vet, and
here's a shout out to Dr. Stacy Wadsworth. We love you.
Yeah,
we're looking for you.
We love you. If you're anywhere near, come back to us. And she had heartworms, and she must have known she was dying. And I had changed.
You don't see that in cats very often.
No, you don't. And of course, she never exhibited any symptoms of being sick at all. Nursing her kitties, taking care of her kitties, and being happy. And so I had changed her name to Lady April because she was so gallant. Okay, so I had her cremated. I have the kitties cremated. Okay, someday when I pass on, they're going to put all their ashes in the casket with me. We all go together. And
this is going to be like a casket the size of this.
Yeah, well, could be. Anyway, at the rate I'm going, that might be the case. They called me from Carole Cats to tell me her ashes are back. And they said, Lady Angel's ashes are here.
Oh.
I was about to correct her, and I said, no. That's where she is.
Yes. Oh, makes me cry again.
Yeah, and I wrote, that was the first short story, because I'd been writing long books. I wrote a story called A Small Miracle named Lady Angel. And a British gentleman who was in Portugal, that was a publisher, saw it on the internet. And he contacted me, and he said, I've got to publish this story. And he did. And then I told him about Finn. And I told him I had written some stories about Finn stories. And he said, well, can I see them? And so I sent them. And I said, I have a rescue. He said, I'll tell you what I do. He said, I support rescues around the world. And every time he published a story, he sent a donation for the story to the rescue. And he's published a lot of Finn's stories.
Oh, wonderful.
Finn's stories became famous in 60 countries over 6 continents.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they were published
amazing.
In a myriad of languages, crossed ethnic, cultural, language barriers, went all over the place.
Now, see, I had no idea you were so famous because you put his name to these stories. You don't even put your own name to the stories.
Well, that's right. He's the most literary cat in the world. He's famous all over the world. It's a little cute Mugsy here. And one of the things that I did was I used to allow other rescues all over the world to use Finn's stories. Because Finn's motto is, to those that do good, good will surely come.
Lovely
and so
motto.
they were allowed to use his stories for free to make money for their own rescues. And one of the rescues that used a lot of his stories for their furry tales and meowsings was the Animal Care Society of Cork, Ireland.
How perfect.
Yes. And the people in Ireland loved his story. And they would call the rescue and they'd say, where's Finn's book? Where's Finn's book? And Albert Klein, who runs the rescue, called me one day and said, where's that cat's book? And I said, the cat doesn't have a book, and he's not going to have one because Finn is an original. If you Google Magic Leprechaun Cats, you will find he's the only one in the entire universe. And nobody's getting the copyright to him. He said, we'll make you a deal. You keep the copyright, you design a book, and we'll publish it. And
that is a deal.
This book originates in Ireland.
How wonderful.
It's printed in Cork, Ireland.
And can you kind of flip through there and show some of the beautiful illustrations?
Oh, yeah. So when you get this book, you not only get Irish tales, you get Irish tales from Ireland. And I bet a lot of you viewers don't really know that Halloween started in Ireland.
I did not know that.
Yes.
I was married on All Saints' Day, and that was the first time I knew any of that sort of thing.
Yes, well, St. Patrick brought Christianity to Ireland, and Halloween was a Druid, which was the religion of the Celts, the Celtic people who originated in Ireland. And it was a feast that they celebrated when the time changed, when the light of the world went from bright to dark. And they believed that at this time of the year, the line between the mortal world and the immortal world became very thin, and spirits could cross over. And so in order to scare away the bad spirits, they would wear scary costumes. And that's the origination, of course, of us wearing costumes, scary costumes for Halloween. But the whole idea of Halloween centers around this Druid feast. It became All Hallows Eve, and then the next day became All Saints' Day because, of course, when it got to be Christian, they were thinking of the Druid holiday as a pagan holiday, which they switched over.
And you touched on this in the book, right?
Yes, so this is a picture. This is the Ferry Coins of Tar. I have to tell you, this is a beautiful story. Of all the Finn stories, I love this one, maybe the best. And it's about a young girl who is faced with many issues, not the least of which is her horse gets in trouble. But her family's in trouble too. And she has a beautiful voice. And she tries to rectify the situation by going on Halloween Eve. The Irish go guising, which is the Irish word for trick-or-treating. And I don't want to give away the story very much.
You have to buy the book.
But she decides that with her beautiful voice, because what they give is they give candy and cookies and the like, but they also give coins. And she thinks that if she goes and sings for the people, that they will give her coins, and then she can help her family.
Oh,
and that's her objective. So when you read the story, you see how it all plays out with the help of a magic leprechaun cat. One of Finn's relatives. Each of these stories that I write has a different magic leprechaun relative cat of Finn's. And the whole idea behind each story is that the human in the story, the cat just doesn't give him his wish, the magic. He doesn't create the magic. They have to do something to earn it. To
That's a great
those
life
that do
lesson.
good, good will surely come. And so in each of the stories, not only do you learn something about Ireland, the first story in this book is about St. Patrick. And we solve a great mystery about St. Patrick. Something history has never solved. And here's a picture of St. Patrick with his magic leprechaun. You see? And that also tells you the story about how magic leprechaun cats got to be magic leprechaun cats. Here's another beautiful picture from the Halloween story. This is
that is gorgeous.
Cara and her horse, Ahern. Lord of the Horse. Ahern means Lord of the Horse.
You know, I did not know that. I know people that have that as their last name, and so it makes me wonder.
Ahern means Lord of the Horse.
Maybe
and this is our Christmas story, A Candle in the Window. And this little kitten is Niall, and Niall is the Gaelic for night. And he's the little white knight, and that's a little fairy, Rialta, sitting on its back. And Rialta has to earn her wings, and Niall has to find himself a home. So anyway, the stories are all based on Irish legend, folklore, history, every story.
And it's not just for children. I'm enjoying reading this. I haven't had the chance to read all of it, but what I have read has really been wonderful and inspiring.
As I said, you know, they've been published in all those countries, and for the most part, they're read by adults. An example in Volume 2, we have a story called Masquerade, which is a Halloween story. It's a Cinderella story. And because I wanted a boy in this story, because I had a girl in the last generation, I wanted a boy, so I did a Cinderella story. It's very magical and it's very heartwarming. And my friend Michael, who is a British guy in Portugal, he published this story, and he would always feed me back the comments that came from everybody. And one of the comments was, better than the original. Australia loves Finn McCool.
Oh, how perfect is that?
I know. It's so gratifying. I mean, you know, I love to write spy novels, and it's very exciting. But like this coming Monday, the Lowry Elementary School is a hotbed of Finn fans. Okay. It all started in 2008 when a customer of mine, Jan Siegel, who was a kindergarten teacher there, learned about Finn. And she started reading his stories to her kids in kindergarten. And pretty soon, St. Patrick's Day came around, and she invited me to come. And we have Publix sugar shamrock cookies, green punch, the children all make leprechaun traps, and I read the story. And now we're in our 6th year of this event. This coming Monday, I will go to the school, and we will have our annual Finn McCool Day.
He's got his own day now.
And I've sold these books at many, many places. One of the places recently I was at was a cat show in Largo. They have a beautiful international cat show. And several people came up to me and they said, oh, we bought your book last year. We're teachers. And they were all different grades, not just kindergarten. They were all different grades. And they said, we use the book the entire year in our class. And
it's such a good message for kids to learn.
Well, it's an unintended consequence of this wonderful book that not only does it save cats' lives, because it does, because all the money that I get from this book goes to the kiddies, but it's now helping children. It's helping children. It's helping children understand about a place they may never, ever know about because they don't teach about Ireland in school. It has heartwarming stories that teach them a lesson in a nice way, you know. And when a little child comes in through my line at Publix, and they'll have cat food on the thing, and I'll say, oh, do you have a kitty? And they'll say, yes. And I say, what's your kitty's name? And they'll say, Fluffy or Spot, or, you know, whatever it is. And I say, I have a kitty too. Do you know what his name is? And they'll look at me, Finn McCool, the magic leprechaun cat. Smile, ear to ear. Parents smiling. Everybody down the line smiling. You can't see Finn McCool, the magic leprechaun cat, without getting a big smile. And I have a little card. I always give them this little card. My illustrator, Cheyenne Booker, she's fantastic. And this little card is one of the, this is Finn in the cover here, but this is one of the illustrations from the book. And I don't know if you can see, but the cat is winking.
Yes, you can see it on the screen here.
It's the final illustration from the Halloween story. And the cat is winking. And the children just go bananas. They go bananas. And then they can go on the website, and we have a story blog, and they can read other stories. So, you know, it's been a fun experience doing this, and we hope that people understand that, you know, you have to be kind to animals, and you have to understand that when it comes a time in your life that maybe you have to part with them for whatever reason, you need to give serious thought to it. There are a lot of wonderful places in the city of Tampa and all over that will assist you if you can't keep your cat for one reason or another. You have to make sure you don't take it to a shelter that will euthanize it, because there are plenty of places that will help you find homes for it, or a sanctuary that if it's an old cat and has issues and is not adoptable, that there are places that will actually take your cat and keep it so it can live out its life and be happy.
Are there any that you would like to recommend specifically?
Pardon?
Are there any you would like to recommend specifically?
Well, there's Cat Crusaders, I guess, does a good job, and St. Francis at the PetSmarts here can help a lot of people. I send people there. I'm kind of at my limit, but I just took in a kitten the other day because the lady at the store said, I got 4 cats and 2 dogs, and my husband says no more. And then she meets me in the parking lot with this tiny 4-pound kitten wrapped in a blanket with a teddy bear.
Oh, dear. How do you say no to that?
Well, I didn't expect that. I took the cat without knowing that, but when I saw it, I said, oh, my God. I mean, and luckily she's a customer at the store, and I take pictures of the kittens and a kitten, and I show her. I buddied her up with another older cat that's been raising kittens for years, and he's teaching her the ropes and teaching her manners. And
I have an emergency call about one of our leopards. I have to step away from this for a minute, but could you tell people about spaying and neutering and where you go and why that's so important?
Oh, yes. And another thing, in addition to making sure that if you have to find a home for your cat because for some reason, whatever it may be, you're moving and can't take the animal with you, or you become ill, or a relative has passed away, and you have to make other arrangements for it. One of the most important things that you need to remember is to spay and neuter all of your animals, whether they're cats or dogs. A big problem we have is feral cats, and of course the reason they're feral is people dump them on the outside, and they have not been spayed and neutered, and then they breed, and these animals are out there, and they do not have any way to protect themselves, any place to eat. They just become wild, and they become a problem, which it would really help if they were spayed and neutered because it would limit the population. And it also is better for the animals themselves. They're actually healthier and they live a longer life if they are spayed and neutered. So you're doing your animal a favor. And there are lots of places you can go. I know one of the problems that people have is the expense of the veterinary care of your animal. And we have 2 really great places in this town that you can access help. One of them is the Animal Care Coalition of Tampa, which is located on Gilchrist, which is in, I think it's North Hyde Park. They're amazing. They're absolutely amazing. And I can't tell you what a wonderful job they do. They spay and neuter. That's their major mission. And they have all kinds of great programs where you can bring feral cats, you can bring your house cats, you can bring anybody. The cost is nominal for the services they offer. But more importantly, they also do regular well-being, health care for your animal. Because that's another thing. People give up their animals because they can't afford to care for them. But if you go there and you get your animal spayed, neutered, or if you even go and just make your animal known to them, get them checked over one time. They go into the records over there. You can get flea and tick medicine online. You don't even have to go there. You can buy it online so you can protect your animal from fleas and the like. And you can go there and you can get health services. You can get shots. If your animal gets sick, you can go there and have your animal treated. They even operate on the cats and dogs at a very nominal fee. I want to tell you, it almost blows your mind, okay? But they do, and they're kind people, and they do the best thing for you and your animal. Your animals are going to be happy, and your pocketbook is going to love you.
And there are a lot of county programs that have vouchers for people who can't afford it that you may not know are available unless you ask your animal services.
Yes, and if you ask, if you go like to the Humane Society, also has a now wonderful wellness facility where you can take your animals, and they also do even operations and spaying and neutering, all at a cost that most people can afford. And if you can't afford it, as you said, there are local programs, county programs open to people where, even for free sometimes they will do the service just to help, because in doing so, they help everybody. They help the animals. They help everybody in this community. They help the community because in spaying and neutering, we eliminate all these animals that are just running wild with no homes. Nobody care for them. And it's not fair to anybody for this to be. And it's a solvable problem.
Yes.
Okay?
It's a people problem. It's not a cat problem.
Yes, and the cats are not to blame. Okay? The animals are not to blame. The dogs are not to blame. People have to take responsibility for their animals. If you choose to have an animal, it's just like having children. It's like anything. You have to be responsible for every aspect of owning the animal. Feeding it, making sure it's housed properly, making sure it has the right medical care. And let me tell you something. Adopting is an amazing experience. Animals that are adopted give you 150% back every time. They know what you did for them. They know it. They are so appreciative.
Absolutely.
It's amazing. I mean, all the cats I've taken in, I mean, the love they show you back is, money can't buy that. Money can't buy that.
People
and the
ask
loyalty
me,
and the everything, it's just incredible.
People ask me all the time when I walk around with them and they see how the big cats here respond to me. They always say, you know, do you spend extra time with that animal? Do you feed that animal? And I don't deal with any of the food or enrichment or anything. But I'm usually there when the cat is rescued, and they know. They know from that point forward, this person got me out of this horrible jam. And so when people are adopting a cat that's been sent to a pound or that's been on the street, that cat knows that this is somebody who went out of their way to do me a favor, and I'm going to be good to them.
Right. Even the ones that I can take inside. I feed Farrell Colonies. I feed the cats that show up in my parking lot. We get them fixed. I can't take every cat in because there's only so much I can house. But, for example, in my neighborhood, I've had cats that lived outside my house for a long time, but they have shelter. So if the weather gets bad, they have a place to get out of it. They have food 24/7 in a sheltered area. They have hard food. They have water. And twice a day, they all get fed a little bowl of soft food. Twice a day, they're always there. In the morning, 6:15, he's lined up for the bowl of food. When my truck pulls in, when I get back from work, everybody's lined up for the bowl of food. They all know where they should sit. They all wait patiently while I fill the bowls, and then they, in turn, get their bowl. No fighting allowed in my front yard. Okay, rule of the house. And they're all happy, and they're all fat, and they're all okay. And if anybody needs anything, if an outside cat needs to come in, he comes in. Okay, he doesn't have to feel like he's gonna die out there. Okay, if he's looking like that's not the life that's gonna suit him anymore, inside.
They know where to find you.
Inside, because that's not fair. Not fair. And if they get sick, I mean, I'm a cat rescue, okay, but if the dog shows up, he's not getting turned away, okay? And in the last 6 months, I've rescued a pigeon out of my parking lot at Publix. I got called once by Publix and said, oh my God, one of the card people found a baby squirrel that fell out of a nest. You gotta come, my day off. Rescue the squirrel. My best friend, somebody cut down a limb out of a palm tree and knocked a baby squirrel out of the palm tree. He got rescued. And not 2-3 weeks ago, I was feeding the outside cats. By the way, possums, raccoons, anything with 4 feet or 2 feet in feathers is allowed to eat in my house. He was eating and left, and he went up the tree, and I thought he had left. And all of a sudden, I'm feeding one of the outside cats, and I hear crack, and the limb falls, and he lands on the sidewalk with a big plop. And he looked like he expired. So I ran over to him and said, now what am I going to do with you?
And your cats are obviously well fed because they didn't run over to eat him.
No. And the funny thing is, you know, I have this big feeding station, and just it seems like the word has gotten out. Possums and raccoons abide by the same rules the cats do. If there's a raccoon eating in the feeder and a cat shows up, he sits patiently and waits until the raccoon leaves. And the raccoon, I've seen the raccoons walk right by the cat, and then the cat come in and eat. No problem. But, you know, I didn't want to touch the raccoon because raccoons are notorious. For rabies, folks out there, be careful. And so what I did was I ran in and I got a cat carrier, and I placed it next to him, and I got a great big scoop shovel. And he had changed position by that time, and I went up to him and I said, you know, if you get in that box, I can help you. But if you don't get in that box, I don't know what I can do for you. And I don't know how bad you're hurt. Well, I scooped a little under him with the shovel, and he went right in the carrier. And I closed the door, and I put him in my truck, and I drove. It's the Barris Animal Hospital. I forget the name of it. It's on Florida. For any of you that find wildlife that needs help, these people are on Florida and Barris, the corner where there's a. Okay. Bank of America. Bank of America. Anyway,
it's on
they're the last building on the right-hand side, and they take in wildlife. They are associated with many of the wildlife rescues, and if you find a squirrel or a bird or something like that, you can take it there, and they will see it gets to the proper rescue group. So I took this little raccoon over there, and they took him in, you know, because by the time I got there, he was sitting up looking at me like, what happened? Where am I? But he could have been hurt internally, and it was important for a veterinarian to check. And so he went there, and then they would give him to a wildlife group. And then if everything is okay with them, then when they're healed, they're reintroduced into the wild. And I did tell them that he was welcome back home if they needed him to bring him back. He had family at our house, so they could bring him back. But it's a great feeling, folks. It's a great feeling to help. And if you can't help and you see something that needs help, please call somebody. You know, call the Humane Society, call the Animal Coalition. They can put you on to somebody. Get a hold of Cat Crusaders. Call somebody over at PetSmarts here with St. Francis. They'll get you in touch with somebody that can help an animal because, you know what? We're in charge of this big earth here. It's our responsibility, just like these big cats here are taken so wonderfully care of and offered a place where they can live out their life in safety and comfort and happiness. Every animal deserves that. And you and I are responsible for that.
And I think
we're the caretakers of the earth. We are the caretakers of the earth. And it is our responsibility to see that we care for it well and that all animals are protected.
I think that is a wonderful place to wrap this up. Our hour is gone. So thank you, Karen Lynch, for being with us on Cat Chat. You can find us at thecatchatshow.com or on Stitcher Radio. This will be available in iTunes next week. And if you go to catchatshow.com, you will find the show notes from this and links on where you can find the Irish Holiday Fairy Tales written by Karen Lynch. If you're coming out for the March for Lions, then you can have your book autographed there. She'll be setting up a little booth there in the parking area. So thank you so much for coming on.
Well, thank you for inviting me. And it's wonderful to talk to your audience. And I know that we've got a lot more cat rescuers out there.
Yes, we do. Bye, everybody.
Bye. And what we did was Jan, the teacher, said this book is perfect because the new teaching method, the kids have to read nonfiction as well as fiction. And, of course, this book is a true story. It's about bears that happen. It's great in two ways because it's about stuffed bears who kids love. And it's a true story because it happened in the store. And so what she did was she made discussion questions for the back of the book.
Nice idea.
Yeah. So the teachers can use the book in class, which will encourage more schools to buy them and libraries. And the questions are already there. They don't even have to do that.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
I had mentioned to Denny, I have a lady who works for me remotely. She works out of Missouri, but she makes all of our iBooks that are available in the iTunes store. And so I was wondering if you had any interest in turning any of your books into iBooks where you could sell them through the iTunes store as digital downloads.
Oh, wow, I haven't even thought about that. I'm so technically challenged. It's horrible.
Well, she could convert them for you. But the iTunes store, Apple only pays you like 30% of what they collect, so that's why they sell them, is because they're getting 60% or 70%. But if it's something you're interested in, I'll talk to Luana and see how long it would take her to do something like that. We wouldn't charge you anything for it. We don't want anything out of the sales. I just thought it would be a nice way to get the books in more people's hands.
Yeah, that would work. I'm not sure if this one, if he did it. Oh, you're so beautiful. You're so beautiful. I just love cats. I don't care what's behind you. My little.
I think he'd take all 60 cans of cat food, though.
Yeah, he'd take more than 60 because they're the little ones.
Oh, no.
Yeah, he says, I know. He says, can't you please give me a case of hankies?
They know kindred souls.
A case wouldn't do it for you. Holy cow. I love you. You're beautiful. You're so beautiful. He says, don't call me beautiful. I'm so beautiful.